Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Spider-Verse Retrospectives. And today we'll be continuing our discussion of the Spider-Verse storyline as we take a look at The Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, Number 11. Now, last time on Spider-Verse, the Spideys of the main Marvel Universe were integrated into the Spider Army and Peter Parker was elected the new leader of the Spider Army because, well, he's actually had experience fighting against the Inheritors and won. As such, while reluctant to take the role, Peter does accept it, and not a moment too soon, as the Spider Army wants to add more members to their roster. Specifically, the Superior Spider-Man's army, who they finally managed to track down in the year 2099. Unfortunately, when the Spider Army goes to their location and attempts to recruit them, things kind of go wrong, as what was keeping Otto's spider team from getting detected by the Inheritors were cloaking devices that he had created. But unfortunately, the devices only worked up to a point, and since a handful of the Spideys in the army were a bit over the top as it was, essentially by bringing all these Spideys here, it essentially shot a flare into the multiversal sky and let the Inheritors know where they were, which resulted in one of the Inheritors, specifically Deimos, coming right to their door and trying to kill them. While the Spider Army does manage to fight Deimos off, and with the Superior Spider-Man even landing a killing blow, well, not very long after, Deimos suddenly comes back with reinforcements, specifically Bricks and Bora, which results in the Spider Army realizing, yeah, this is going foobar, they need to get out of here. However, as a result of this battle, the Spider Army begins kind of sort of splitting up, as one team of Spideys, specifically Kane, Ben Reilly, and the Ultimate Jessica Drew, actually put together that the reason Deimos was able to come back so quickly is that they determined that his mind was transferred to a clone body, and so they figure that wherever his body came from, if they can stop those clone bodies from being created, it can essentially cut off the Inheritors' resurrection matrix, so to speak. And so they end up going off into their own spin-off, or tie-in, to essentially try and put an end to that. Meanwhile, one of the Spideys, Cindy Moon, aka Silk, was told that that her totem energy was very high, and that was because she was actually a special totem known as the Bride, which according to one of the Spideys that bites it, specifically Old Man Spider, who we learn is actually an alternate version of Ezekiel Sims, well, apparently Cindy Moon and two other totems, specifically the other and another totem known as the Scion, are very important spider totems that if anything happens to them, well, that's the end of that's the end of everybody, and so Ezekiel charges Peter with keeping them safe before he bites it. However, Cindy realizes that she's a threat to the Spider Army, so she ends up stealing a dimensional teleporter and runs off, with the main universe Spider-Woman and Spider-Man Noir going after her to essentially act as backup, which causes them to go off into their own tie-in. And for the final team, the Spider-Man of 2099, realizing he's home and that Deimos' old body is now left unguarded, he decides that it's best to try and get that thing looked at so they can see if they can figure out what makes the Inheritors tick. And so he, the six-armed Spider-Man, and a new Spidey for the event known as Lady Spider, again, get to her later, end up taking the body and running off, with Deimos following after. In the meantime, the remaining Spideys end up deciding that they need to go back to the safe zone, but upon arriving back there, the Superior Spider-Man proclaims that the time for talking is over and that he is in charge, which is where the last issue ended, and where this one begins, as at the beginning of issue 11, Peter tells him that he's full of it, and that he's in charge. As out of all the Spideys, he's the one that's had the most experience with the Inheritors since he's fought Morlun twice. Otto! He laughs at this, pretty much stating that he's been studying the Inheritors for weeks and knows them in and out, and, well, Otto actually believes that Peter is from earlier in the timeline, and that because, well, Otto's an arrogant jackass and cannot compute the idea of a world where he will lose to Peter in the end. And as a result of this, he thinks that that Otto very much thinks that he's from the future while Peter's from his past, and tries to use that against him by saying, I've been through everything you have and more, so logically, I'm better suited for the job, and I'm the superior Spider-Man and all that crap, which Peter just does not buy. However, on top of that, Otto continues trying to throw Peter's leadership in his face by stating that the instant that he and his team arrived at Otto's location, everything went belly up, and so he says, oh, come on, it's like, if you really want to show yourself as a leader, come on, show me, take your best shot, and Peter punches him in the face, which actually leads to a funny line where Peter says, you know what, if that leaves a permanent mark on my face, I don't care, so worth it. As such, Otto realizes that the only way that this is going to go down as if the two of them have a little fight. And so Peter and Otto duke it out right there in the middle of the safe zone with all the other spies just watching. And while Mayday thinks that this is probably a waste of time, since this is time they could be using to do important stuff like keep track down the inheritors. Even Cosmic Spider-Man says that it's best to just let them play this out and get it over with. So, yeah. The Amazing and Superior Spider-Man are duking it out. And pretty much both sides, whether they know it or not, are treating this like a traditional Spidey Otto fight, with Peter making jokes, throwing webs at Otto's robotic legs, Otto scoffing at him and telling him that he doesn't have what it takes, and that one day he will, and that one day he'll outgrow the jokes and learn what it takes to really win. That one day he'd be willing to take a life. Peter says, "No, I never will be that, and I'm never going to do that." And Otto says, "Oh, you will be when you're me," and that's when Peter has an idea. You see, he starts to realize that Otto is just so arrogant that he can't conceive of him potentially losing in the end. And so that's why when Peter thinks, so if he thinks I'm from earlier in the timeline, then what if I use that against him? And sure enough, Peter just leaves himself open to Otto and says, well, go on then, show me your superior strategy, land the final blow, kill me. And Otto pauses because, well, if Peter is from earlier in his timeline, then killing him will ensure that he doesn't live long enough for Otto to pull the old switcheroo with their bodies, which leaves him wide open for Peter to deliver a flying kick straight to his face and knock him out. In the meantime, back with the inheritors, Solus is kind of pondering upon the Great Web. Specifically, he's watching Karn as he just killed the great spider wolf with a lichen spear. You heard me right. It's a Spider-Man who's a werewolf. I want to know more about that guy, please. But whatever. Either way, after Karn kills him, Solus tells the Master Weaver to just send Karn to another world. But in the meantime, Morlun enters the fray, and Solus wants to talk with his son because he thinks that Morlun's journey across the Solus believes that Morlun's hunt across the multiverse seems to have come to a screeching halt, and he starts to believe it's because a particular Spider-Man has entered the fray. Again, main universe Spider-Man. Morlun, of course, denies this, which, it's clear abject denial of the truth. But to try and deflect, he does state that what he's more concerned with is something known as a prophecy, which once again goes back to the Scion, the Other, and the Bride, as apparently all three of these Spideys are necessary for whatever prophecy it is that they're building up to. However, the inheritors have a bit of a problem, because while the Other and the Bride are not at the safe zone, as Kane and Cindy went off to go and do their own things in tie-ins, one of the spider totems is apparently already in the safe zone. It's one of the Spideys there, and so it's apparently out of the inheritors' reach. However, Solus just kind of scoffs it off and says nothing's really outside of my reach, and telling Morlun that he wants him to get Gen X, and he thinks it's time that they storm the stronghold, as it were. In the meantime, back at the safe zone, as Otto wakes up, he wakes up to Peter offering him a hand of friendship, which at first confuses Otto, but Peter tells him that, he may not like him and he may not approve of his methods, but he can't deny the results, because Otto has been holding his own against the inheritors for a while, and his strategies were working for a time. So even Peter admits while he doesn't want him to be the leader of the group, he thinks he'd be stupid not to listen to his advice and ask what to do, and to try and figure out what to do next, which, oddly enough, I think is a nice little callback to issue 7 of Amazing Spider-Man, when Peter and Anna were talking, and Anna mentioned that if Peter refused to use any of Otto's methods, then maybe Otto wasn't the only jerk around. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, I had to shift over a little. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so like I said, nice little callback. But either way, Otto somewhat reluctantly does agree to this, as he thinks it's probably the smartest decision that Peter has made. And so they meet, and with a little grudge match between Peter and Otto done with, the Spideys begin trying to think of a new plan. Firstly, they decide they need to move closer into the city, because the thing is, the safe zone was right out there in the middle of Central Park, so all the Spideys are just wide out in the open. So Peter thinks that maybe they need to move inward so that they have at least more cover, plus, to have more swinging space, so to speak, since, web slinger, high buildings, all that stuff. And on top of, as such, after they do that, Peter tries checking in on each of the away teams to try and figure out what they're doing, and the results aren't really that great. When he tries calling the clone crew, as it's called, Well, he doesn't get an answer. He doesn't get an answer. When he tries to call in Miguel, Miguel just blows him off and hangs up. And likewise, when they get word back from Spider-Woman, well, unfortunately, they got some bad news. Apparently, as Jessica, Cindy, and Spider-Man Noir were running away, Noir was injured, and they had to drop him back off at his world, which, yeah, even Otto thinks isn't a good idea, because if he really is that injured, he'd be a sitting duck if just left on his own, especially in his own universe. Peter thinks that maybe it's not going to be too bad because, well, Cindy's still on the move, and as Otto said, she's like a flare because of her status as the bride. And so he thinks they'll be fine. But to take extra measures, he wants to ensure something. As such, he has Otto hand over some of his cloaking devices because, well, he thinks that maybe they could be utilized to hide more than just the spider army. Excuse me one sec again. Sorry about that. But anyway, yeah. Peter thinks that if they can use the cloaking tech correctly, well, might be able to mask Spider-Man Noir's presence, as after all, the Noir universe is a world the Inheritors have hit before, and so odds are there's a chance that they probably won't go back there since they think that world Spider-Man has long gone, and so with the cloaking tech, it'll just ensure that he won't be coming back. So it'll be pretty much just hide his presence from them, which even Otto thinks that's a solid plan. However, Peter also has another reason for wanting it, as he begins asking Otto if he could reverse engineer the cloaking tech, as it hides their presence from the Inheritors, but could it potentially be reverse engineered, so seek out the Inheritors? Which, yeah, it turns out Otto's actually thought of this as well, and he's actually succeeded in finding where the Inheritors are living. The only problem is, yeah, going there right now would be a suicide mission. Even Peter agrees that going there as they are would be not a good idea. The Spideys are vastly outnumbered, and they know nothing about the Inheritors' home turf. So they believe that before they actually do a full frontal assault, they need intel, someone behind enemy lines. And Peter thinks he might know just the Spidey for the job, which prompts him to ask Anya and Spider-Gwen to come with him for a specific mission, which does lead to a nice little character moment where Peter and Gwen actually do talk, because, yeah, last issue, when the teams were being assembled, Gwen was one of the Spideys that was going to be brought in, but Peter denied it because of his whole history with Gwen, and, well, between issues, Gwen did get the full story, and, well, she and Peter promised to take care of each other because on both of their worlds they couldn't save the other person. So it's nice, pretty sweet, I like it. But, yeah, Peter's off to go do another mission to try and give them intel, but in the meantime, there's still another matter. Even if they get intel on the Inheritors, Peter believes that they might need a little bit more backup. Which is where another tie-in spin-off Spider team comes in. Specifically, Miles Morales and another Spider-Man in the army. Specifically, the Spider-Man of the then current Spider-Man cartoon, Ultimate Spider-Man. You know, the one where Drake Bell played Spider-Man? Yeah, that one. Henceforth, I'm going to be calling that Spider-Man the Drake Bell Spider-Man. And what I kind of find amusing is that he's actually drawn like he was from the cartoon, so I'll give you that. I think that's kind of a nice way of distinguishing them. And it is kind of cool they actually are using a Spider-Man from one of the cartoons, which, yeah, I understand they did reference the other shows from the past, but the fact that they are actually having the then current Spidey from the most recent cartoon in there, I like that. That's pretty cool. But again, getting that little bit of coolness aside, Peter wants Miles and Drake Bell Spidey to essentially go and gather more recruits, as he hands them their own portal devices and cloaking tech, and pretty much just says, gather as many Spideys as you can and try and build the army up, which, while Miles is a little disappointed that he and Peter won't be teaming up again, he does what he's asked, and so Peter, Anya, and Gwen go off to go and do their own thing, while Miles and Drake Bell Spider-Man go off to get more recruits, with their first stop being Earth 67, the homeworld of the 1960s cartoon Spider-Man, which again, if you want to see where that goes, we're going to have to go back to the tie-ins, so we'll get to that when we get to that. But in the meantime, no sooner do the teams end up leaving to go on their own missions, when the assorted Spideys in the safe zone suddenly have their spider senses all go off to the max. And sure enough, they soon learn why, as immediately a portal opens up, and from it come the Inheritors, specifically Morlun, Genix, and their father, Solus, who, yeah, we finally get a good view of him, and I'll admit, his first full appearance is rather imposing. In terms of body structure, he is a lot bigger than most of the Inheritors, including Deimos, who was already the strong guy of the Inheritors, and said he could just see, and very much he kind of his look makes him look older. He's clearly the elder of the Inheritors. And I don't mean to say elder sibling. I mean, no, he's their elder. He's got long hair, a big beard, he's got giant hands, a big long overcoat, and basically the first step he takes onto Earth-13 causes a boom. So, yeah, his first appearance is pretty imposing, and so he pretty much declares he is Solus, he is their doom, and then he orders his kids to immediately start killing off Spideys, and sure enough, 2 more Spider-Men bite the dust, specifically, Spider Monkey and another Spider-Man who I didn't talk about up until now named Captain Spider. But simply, he's a version of Flash Thompson who was bitten by the spider instead of Peter Parker. He's also a miniature of What If, but so check that out. Either way, yeah, 2 more Spideys die. Excuse me 1 second. Again, sorry. But anyway, yeah, 2 Spideys are now dead. So, as a result, as such, Cosmic Spider-Man finally decides, well, it's time to get off my ass and do my job, and so he suits up and, well, starts raining hell down on the Inheritors, annihilating Gen X, which, yeah, does not kill him because of, the whole cloning thing, but when he does spawn in a new body, well, he elects not to go back because, well, he just thinks that what he was doing was degrading, especially since he was the one that ate Spider Monkey. So he just decides, fuck those guys, they can handle it, I'll just stay here on my world and do my thing. Though, based on what we see next, apparently he's about to get rudely interrupted as it looks like that Ben, Kane, and Ultimate Jessica Drew are getting ready to do something. But again, that's for another tie-in. Either way, though, Solus pretty much makes it clear that he is not afraid of Cosmic Spider-Man, and so while Cosmic Spidey is still just doing everything in his power to just try and rain down hell, well, Solus thinks that there is not afraid at all, as he even actually takes a massive jump up, and he manages to meet Cosmic Spider-Man in the air, and he manages to knock him to the ground, even going toe-to-toe with him, which actually shocks almost everyone there, including Morlun and many of the spiders. As such, Cosmic Spidey and Solus do end up trading blow for blow, but Cosmic Spider-Man still thinks that no matter how powerful Solus is, he's no match for the Enigma Force. But Solus showcases that no, he might be. Maybe Cosmic Spider-Man might be a little too overconfident, because, well, the thing about the Enigma Force, it's pure life force, and while many of the other Inheritors may not be able to stomach it, Solus, in his own words, was one of the first, one of the most powerful, and his hunger knows no limits. And so before Cosmic Spider-Man can deliver a blow to him, Solus pretty much grabs Cosmic Spider-Man's face in his giant hands and sucks the life force right out of him, reducing Cosmic Spider-Man to a withered husk. So yeah, safe zone's now nothing. Which even Solus rubs in the Spidey's faces before telling Morlun to get what they came here for. And sure enough, as all the Spideys are just in shock at what they're seeing, Morlun goes up to Mayday, and then just punts her to the ground, causing her to drop her brother. And as Morlun reaches down, he picks up little Benji Parker by his leg, and as the baby cries, he holds him up and says, "Father, the Scion is ours." Yep, Benji Parker is the Scion. And yeah, he's also one of the spider totems needed for the ritual. So yeah, that's where the issue ends. So, what are my thoughts on this issue? Well, again, we do get some more plot progression with it. It does, I guess I should start with character stuff. When it comes to character interactions, I think some of my favorite parts were the battle between the Amazing Spider-Man and the Superior Spider-Man, and I think kind of sort of the stuff with Peter and Gwen, because that's actually some nice stuff. In the case of Peter v. Otto, I think it works well because, well, it's a nice little bit of catharsis. Again, as Peter mentions in the story, he's still cleaning up stuff from when Otto was running around as Spider-Man. And the thing is, well, Otto was going around claiming that he was Peter Parker, and yes, superhero careers are one thing. Superheroes get dragged in the mud all the time in the Marvel Universe, but Peter has to also clean up his act from what Otto did in his personal life. And yes, he got a company out of that, but it's still Otto Octavius, one of the most arrogant and brutal jackasses that the Marvel Universe has ever seen. So imagine having that guy going around claiming he's you, and now you're back in control and essentially have to deal with the aftermath. That's kind of a tall order to fit. That's kind of a tall order, especially since Otto so thoroughly wound up burning a lot of the bridges that Peter once built up. As well, yeah, during the Superior Spider-Man, did you know that part of the reason why Otto formed his own company was because he got Peter fired from his old job working at a lab known as Horizon Labs? Yeah, that's a nice little thing. But either way, it is kind of a nice little thing to see Peter and Otto duke it out, especially since, well, like I said, Peter just treats their battles as a typical outing between the two, especially since Otto in his arrogance still thinks that Peter's from earlier in his timeline, and thus keeps talking about how one day you'll resort to my methods, and you'll see the truth, and Peter's just constantly making fun of him, slapping jokes like, oh, are you getting slow in your old age, or is it just arthritis setting in? So yeah, Peter's just still kicking his ass, and he still showcases that between the two of them, he's the better Spider-Man, as Peter manages to use Otto's arrogance against him, and allows him to turn the tide of battle, as he lets Otto, as using Otto's assumption that he's from earlier in the timeline instead of Otto, he leaves himself open, Otto doesn't kill him, and it allows Peter to land the coup de grace and knock him out. But at the same time, it is still cool that Peter does acknowledge that Otto might actually be a valuable resource, because like he said, Otto has been holding his own against the Inheritors for a while, so it is still nice. So whether Peter will like to admit it or not, it is a good idea to potentially listen to the guy and at least ask for his advice every now and then, because he's been doing well, so maybe it is good at least to hear the arrogant jackass out, which I think does lead to some nice little intermingling with them. On top of that, though, again, the second thing that I liked in terms of character stuff was the little moment between Peter and Gwen, which it's not a big moment, but it's just a nice little bit of mushiness that I just can't help but love, especially since for both Peter and Gwen, they're essentially staring in the faces of the one person in the world they couldn't save. Peter because, well, Peter for Gwen Stacy, and Gwen for Peter. Both not different circumstances, admittedly, but still people they cared about immensely that sadly they couldn't save. Excuse me one sec again. Sorry about that, had to change locations. But yeah, otherwise, cute moment between Peter and Gwen. Really nice. I liked it. Really nice. It wasn't a big moment, but still pretty cute. Otherwise, the rest of the story is mostly kind of business, to kind of keeping the plot moving along, to kind of keep everything going. Basically examples of that are just everyone strategizing, keeping up with the away teams, trying to figure out what everyone's doing and keeping up with it, while also trying to build strategies to continue trying to work around the Inheritors, like when Peter decides to thinks that maybe they should, that knowing that his noir counterpart is out for the count, that they should, to try and at least make sure that he lives long enough to see the end of the war, even if he's not a part of it, they'd have to drop off the cloaking devices, which also leads to them discussing where the Inheritors' homeworld, which even they think wouldn't be a good idea to go straight there because vastly they don't know anything, and they still don't think they're a good match, which of course leads to Peter taking Anya and Gwen to go on their own mission, and sending Miles and Drake Bell Spidey to go and recruit more Spideys for their army, which also leads to another tie-in. Pretty much, yeah, from this point forward, tie-ins are going to be a big thing, and I am going to be mentioning them every now and then, so, yeah, just kind of mentioning that now, so be prepared. But either way, yeah, it is just kind of business to keep everything moving along and showcase that progress is being made in that regard, especially as everyone does jump into action to try and do their assigned roles perfectly. It does lead to some nice little it does lead to also some nice little camaraderie, as like I said, it is cool seeing Otto and Peter working off of each other and actually kind of exchanging ideas and trying to strategize a plan to better take on the Inheritors. But again, as you do with Spider-Verse, things still need to go wrong in order for their plot to happen, and so, yeah, things do go foobar once the Inheritors reach the safe zone. And, yeah, like I said, the reveal of Solus, I do think is really cool. While he essentially does look like a grand elder of the Inheritors. The long hair, the big bushy beard, and he's just so, and like I said, the fact that he's so much bigger and has more weight to him, and that his footstep upon arriving on Earth 13 is essentially creates like a big creates a large boom. Yeah, this is someone that you clearly don't want to screw with. And the fact that, and basically one big defining moment to showcase just how powerful he is compared to the other inheritors, he goes 1v1 with Cosmic Spider-Man, the guy who is supposed to be the deterrent for the inheritors to keep the inheritors from coming to this world. And Solus not only matches him in battle, but manages to kill him. Put simply, yeah, that's a big thing. On top of that, with the final reveal that Benji Parker was the Scion adds a whole other layer of what the hell to this because, yeah, while we may not know what the prophecy is, as, yeah, the story does continue elaborating on more stuff with that, as it is something that the inheritors are interested in doing. Well, we do realize that in order for the prophecy to work, for this prophecy to go forward, they need the bride, and the Scion, and well, we don't know what they need them for, but considering that these guys have been hunting Spideys across the multiverse, it's probably not a good thing. And considering that one of the spider totems is Benji Parker, who I have to remind you is a baby, yeah, that kind of means that this is not going to go, the baby's in danger now, which again will further adds to more of Mayday's character development because, as we've mentioned 2 issues ago, that kid is her only family right now. So imagine how this is gonna fuck her up now. So yeah, that's kind of a big oh shit ending for the issue, especially when you see Moreland just holding the crying infant in his hand. So yeah, not exactly a happy ending, is it? But I guess it is meant to be kind of a big oh shit moment because, well, they got to build hype for the next issue, and sure enough, and I think that's a good way of pretty much just turning everything on their head, as now the Spideys are without a safe zone, no deterrent, and they've captured the resident baby of their group. So yeah, pretty much everything's going down. Pretty much everything's still going, despite the fact that Spidey's got a little bit more footing after Otto's safe zone went kaput. Now they've lost the actual safe zone. So yeah, things are not going to go well for them. As such, yeah, still a nice little continuation of the story. Like seeing more with the inheritors, and as we continue learning more about their whole big plot. Admittedly, another little character thing I liked was when Solus called his Moreland out on how he was afraid of Spider-Man, which I love. Which again, I thought was amusing because seeing Moreland deflect the questions like, I'm not afraid. I'm just more concerned about the prophecy. Which, yeah, he clearly is afraid. He does not like that Peter's entered the fray. I think he really was hoping to save him at last. And considering considering this whole prophecy thing, he was probably hoping to hit Peter after that. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of find that amusing. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, still a nice little continuation. Keeps the plot moving forward. Has some nice character moments, especially with Peter and Gwen, and Peter and Otto. I like seeing the team strategize and try and think of ways to take down the inheritors and form new plans to deal with it. I like seeing them check in with the away teams from the tie-ins, as well as just kind of building off to go into other tie-ins with Miles and Drake Bell Spider-Man, and likewise the ending with Solus and Genix and Moreland invading the safe zone and not only killing Cosmic Spider-Man but getting the Scion, aka Benji Parker. Definitely a big WTF ending that kind of makes you want to know what happens next. So yeah, overall good issue. Looking forward. Good issue. Nice continuation. So there you go. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I hope to see you on Saturday as we see how the Spider Army tries recuperating from this and essentially trying to figure out where their new safe zone is going to be. So till then, hope you have a good night. Again, Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you on Saturday. Take care.